Yo, 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 welcome to episode 17 of the Elite Wrestling Club podcast, where we explore individuals' dreams and the unwavering persistence to achieve them on and off the mat. Hi, I'm your host, Lance Runyon, and I'm thrilled to have you join us for another inspiring episode. In this episode, we will be going behind the scenes with Keegan Moore, who is a former wrestler for the University of Oklahoma and a two-time NCAA qualifier. We will share personal stories and valuable insights, and we're excited to bring you a fascinating conversation that will inspire and motivate you to chase your dreams and achieve greatness both on and off the mat. So without further ado, let's welcome Keegan Moore and dive into the Elite Wrestling Club podcast world. Man, I appreciate you coming on here.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to be here. I've been watching it and been wanting to get on.
Yeah, I mean, I know we've been going back and forth talking about it, you know.
Yeah,
it's good to finally make it happen. I mean, we were on the phone, you know, last night talking. You know, you're kind of a little nervous, maybe a little curious as to what I'm gonna ask you or what I'm gonna dive into.
Nerves.
And yeah, I mean, you know, just I like I told you yesterday, it just, you know, I truly believe that struggle, that suffering, all those big things, adversity, those are all, you know, a big meaning and a big part of our life. And I mean, without those things, what would be the point, you know? So,
yeah,
you know, and I know you've had your fair share, and I'm just excited to kind of talk through those things with you.
Sure.
And you know, what you've learned and how you've developed and how you've grown. So obviously, I mean, you got two older brothers, you got 6 total siblings, right?
Yep. So I'm the 7th, youngest of 7. So
right,
save the best for last.
That's right. I mean, if you want to just start off by talking about, you know, growing up, and obviously you had 2 successful older brothers that were wrestlers, but I mean, also just, you know, your family, what it was like, and how you think it kind of shaped you.
Yeah. I was really fortunate to have a good family structure growing up. My mom and dad, I mean, you know, everyone in the family, you know, we're pretty close, fortunately, but just had a super good support system. And again, just so thankful for that. And lucky that my parents were willing to invest all that time into me. And so it was good, right? Like having older brothers, I got to see an example before I literally went to do it myself. So I tried to, you know, just build off the steps that they put down, and, you know, it worked for me. And, you know, just having a bond between brothers and, you know, going through adversity, like, man, it benefited me so much. Like having 2 older brothers wrestle in college, you know, they knew, they understood, they could level with me, and, you know, I could really communicate. So, but, you know, fortunate, small little town that just had a really good wrestling program. You know, Randy Baker, you know, that's kind of a household name in Jackson County. It is. I mean, he's a legend there too. And so was fortunate to learn some really good technique and just kind of had like a diamond in the rough type deal. And, you know, took off from there, and, you know, he really poured into us, and, you know, we did what we needed to do to be great and in our eyes. And so, but just living up to those, and, you know, they getting recruited, and then, you know, I have insight on the recruiting process. So again, it was just a good fit family that, you know, supported each other, and we wanted to be different. We wanted to be, you know, above normal in the athletic regard. So,
yeah, I mean, did that come from not seeing much success where you grew up, or was that more just something you guys aspired to do from a young age?
Man, I mean, so, you know, sports runs deep in my family, you know, trying to excel in the sport. So, you know, all my uncles in their own right, they were pretty big studs. You know, I had a uncle that played outside linebacker for Barry Switzer at the University of Oklahoma in the 70s. And so, you know, just that high level competitiveness. My father was an All-American in Division II football. So just like that high level of competitiveness, just being passed down from generation. And
Yep.
man, my dad just building us up, telling us we're the best athletes to walk out of Jackson County. I remember being little, and he's in my head about that, and you kind of got that in the back of your head, and subconsciously you're going through it, so develops that way.
Yeah, I mean, what kind of mindset did he give you then growing up? Did
Yeah.
was it pressure? Was it, confidence? Was it
Hmm.
building you up? Was it a little bit
Yeah.
of both?
I got you. So my dad was a little more, hardcore. He Austin, Texas, raised, and he had some really good core values when it came to work ethic. Put your head down and talk with your helmet type stuff. Again, football player. So, um,
Yeah,
you
right.
know, just trying to be desperate in your training. I remember going to college and stuff like that. I remember my dad already putting me through some of these hard workouts, and you know, just making us believe that we're unbreakable. And if someone's more talented than us, we're gonna outwork them. And so he kind of already had that. Um, when he had us, and so he really put it into us when it came time. So that was kind of the mindset.
Before we jump into today's episode, I want to give a big shout out to our first sponsor, the Wash Bar. Get ready for an incredible car wash experience that breaks the mold. At the Wash Bar, it's all about your preferences. Your wash, your way, as often as you like. Customer satisfaction is their top priority. The team at the Wash Bar remembers your preferences, ensuring top-notch service every single time. With their user-friendly app, customizing your car wash has never been easier. But it's more than just a car wash. It's a friendly community. Your little ones can enjoy complimentary root beer while your car gets its makeover. Experience unbeatable cleanliness with the Wash Bar's cutting edge technology. In today's fast paced world, a clean car is a necessity. And don't forget their 24-hour self service bays, free vacuums, and other conveniences. Don't miss out on the exceptional car wash experience at the Wash Bar, located at 1125 Fountains Way. Stop by today for a truly unique car wash. Thank you again to our sponsor, the Wash Bar. Now let's begin today's episode. Yeah, I was just curious because,
Yeah.
I feel like having a dad that was successful in sport, his brothers
Hmm.
were obviously successful too. It's like, you know,
It helps.
they
It's
know what it's
beneficial.
like. They've been there. So,
Yes. What Doug Swap say? You got children, you mold them. You make them. You try to put in those good attributes into your child. So I think
right.
that's what he was doing. So.
Yeah, who would you say was your biggest inspiration growing up? Obviously, you have your brothers and those are probably built-in people, but is there someone that really inspired you growing up?
Man, I mean, honestly, it'd probably be my older brother Cooper. And just in our family, he's kind of seen as, the one that's, always honored my father, honored his requests, and, had some wisdom, and was grounded in his faith. So I think him being grounded in his faith, and me seeing like just him always wanting to do good, in life and just in general things. So I think, and then just watching him, do all the things that I want to do in sports. So I had a good example, but it would probably be my brother Cooper, man. He's one of the best dudes, to this day that I know. Just all around genuine, down to earth dude. So I'd probably be Cooper. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear, It's like how many people you've met too. You think about that, and it's like, man, I was blessed to grow
Yeah.
up with someone like that, that I was around
Exactly.
every
Hmm.
day.
Exactly. Yeah. Pouring into me. Yeah.
Yep. So, we've talked about your supporters, your family. Is there anyone else that's kind of been there for you, been a big support for you growing up that you want to
Yeah,
give a shout out
man.
to?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably been a lot. I'm not trying to miss any names, but Randy Baker, my high school coach. Nate Hansen, my other high school's coach. Troy Schultz. I mean, those were guys that really elevated my wrestling in high school. I can't really think of. I know I got a lot, but one that sticks out to me is Nick Heflin. I mean that guy lives right and lives everything, does what he's supposed to. So just thanking for him the opportunity to get on the team for that too. So probably that. I can't really think of him at the moment. I'm sure there's some people I'm missing, and if there is, if you had an
Oh,
impact,
yeah.
you know.
That's the thing. After this, you'd be like, man, I should have shouted that person out. You know
Yeah,
what? There's
yeah, that's how it
that we're,
goes.
but in that sense, we're blessed. We've had all these
Yes,
people that have poured into us.
yes,
And
exactly.
we're grateful
Doug,
for them
Doug,
all.
Doug Schwab, man, I can't believe that guy, Doug Schwab, changed my life. That dude, yes, absolutely. Can't believe I forgot him.
So obviously, wrestling was a part of your life. Pretty early. With your brothers doing it, looking up to them. Um, did you guys do any club wrestling around there? Did you do a lot of like traveling for tournaments and stuff like that growing up?
Yeah, man, I think, good lord, I think at one point, um, we wrestled for Flat Earth, so that it's a small club, luckily inside Jackson. So Flat Earth Wrestling Club, wrestled for them just growing up, and man, I think my parents at one point we were trying to hit a national tournament every other weekend, and
Yep.
obviously competing under Flat Earth. I think, obviously, we're a local community and a little smaller, so it's kind of harder to, get the funding to take big groups out like some of those clubs do. But man, we had the name tag of Flat Earth, and we ran around the country with that thing. So yeah, we did a lot. We did freestyle. We did, freestyle Greco. We did all of the traveling and trying to wrestle all year round from early age. So
Yeah, I mean, and you could say that that's probably huge. That summer training. Obviously, I'm about to get into your other sports that you played. I
yeah,
mean, you're a freak athlete, and I mean, I saw it. When I was able to spend some time with you in the room, and football and baseball, right?
yeah.
I mean,
Those are great sports, man. You got. I think what's big for young wrestlers coming up. I think got the diversity and doing other sports is very beneficial. Clears your mind. You have the change of seasons, but then it equips you with different skills, different attributes. Tactical thinking. All this type of stuff. So I was from a small town, obviously. Graduated I think with 89 kids, and I lettered in football, track, wrestling, baseball. I tried to literally do it all, and obviously in the small community, you kind of have to do. Those kids kind of rely on to be in every kind of sport to
right? You're
fill
you're
numbers.
sought after.
Yes, yeah, and to fill numbers too. But I think having that break, and especially in high school, not taking wrestling so serious, man. I mean, obviously, in the season of wrestling, in that season, I mean, pour into it all out. But good to have those breaks, doing other sports. I would advise younger athletes to be in at least one or two sports. Uh, more than one sport. I mean, so.
Yeah, I mean, and that's something I've talked about on here before. It's like there's many different perspectives in that sense of and probably having a dad that played football, he wanted you to do both, but
Oh yeah,
there's
yeah.
there's also people that are like, oh, if you're gonna wrestle, like that's all you're gonna do, and you're gonna be as best at wrestling as possible. If you want to play football, that's all you're gonna do, and we're gonna go to these
Yeah.
camps all summer, all year long. And it's cool to hear you talk about the benefits of doing so many things, of so many sports, and like you said, like putting yourself out there in many different ways, testing yourself in many different ways, building different
Yeah.
relationships,
Right.
you know,
Yes.
with
Yes.
coaches and friends and teammates and all that stuff. I mean,
Exactly.
but
Wrestling's
I mean,
hard, man.
yeah, that's right. I mean, it's good to have that break, that
Yeah.
relief. I think that's something I kind of my dad made sure I had growing up is like until I got into high school, later in high school where I like wanted to do it, but it
Right.
was,
Right.
after state we're taking 2 or 3 months off. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I want you to be a kid too. That's important.
Exactly.
So,
And that's what's troublesome is when you get you see the ability in your kid probably with some of these parents, and they really want to narrow it down for them and really give them an opportunity, but it gets troublesome because you get that you start closing in on things, and it's hard to get that relief, get what you need, and it can be stressful and kind of daunting on an athlete.
yeah, for sure. I mean, I just want to talk a little bit about your football. You were I read a few different articles. So, one of Minnesota's best football players, career touchdown record, career rushing record. I mean, freak football player. And at one point, I saw in the article it was like, I wrestle to be better at football.
Yeah, that was it. Back in the day, man, I wanted to play football. I didn't want to wrestle. You could ask anyone. I literally, man, up until I think my junior year, I was like, I'm playing football. I'm playing football, and whole life, just obviously, like I said, it was in my family. So, um,
Yep.
and I love football, man. Wrestling's not easy. Football was a little bit more easier. I could, it's a team aspect, and I just enjoyed that and had fun. I was lucky to have some really good coaches. My dad was my running back coach and my defensive coach, so was very fortunate. I was on a lot of good teams and really fortunate to my senior year go to the state finals, but never got a ring. That one still hurts, but no, man, football was good, and that's the beauty of that. I look back on Friday Night Lights, stuff like that, and like those are some of my best memories. Like literally grinding out there with my boys, and I think that's special. And think, man, that's something that I feel like a lot of athletes should experience. High school
Yeah.
football is special. So
Yeah, for sure. I think. I mean, I didn't play football much. I did for 2 years, but I got
yeah.
to watch my brother do it. And
Hmm.
he says the same thing. It's like Friday Night Lights, man. There's nothing that beats that.
Yeah. Yeah. It was
And
fun.
then that's exactly what it is.
Yeah,
Out there with your boys, playing together as a team.
exactly. And two is like, since I had wrestled and went through that, kind of pain and suffering during those seasons and stuff. I mean, when got hard in football, it was kind of easy, and it was easy to be an example and lead, um, especially like during those gritty games. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
reflecting back on that, I'm sure some of my teammates viewed me as pretty crazy, but you can get wild on the field. It's pretty
Oh,
fun.
for sure. But then you go back to exactly what you just said. Like wrestling's on a different level when it comes to that aspect of pain and suffering. And there's so
Oh,
much that goes into it on the day to day, and you only have one person to point the finger at, and it's you.
exactly. It's
You
all
know.
on you.
So
Yeah,
doing multiple sports, um, and then being able to just point your finger during wrestling, right? You can only blame
yeah,
yourself.
yeah. It's all on you. I mean, you can't. Like that's the thing. I think at the end of the day, like when I really got down and thought about like my decision and what I was going to pursue. I mean, I liked that kind of aspect of it. I knew at the end of the day, it's all on me. Kind of up to me to control the outcome. And you're not with the team. And if you have anything that's out of line. It will be revealed on the mat. You can't hide on the mat, you know. All
Right.
those things
Yep.
all those bad decisions or things that you didn't have in check, it will be revealed under the light, you know, straight up. And that's on the mat. Scale don't lie, the mat don't lie. So.
Nope. You're right. And then we get into your high school accolades. Fargo Triple Crown, 3-time state champ, many other things. Those being some of the bigger ones. And
Yeah,
then obviously just making that decision between wrestling and football, and then how'd
yeah.
you do it? How'd you what? And I mean, you just said you chose wrestling, but what did
hmm
it come down to for you?
Man, it came down to my faith. You know, it came to a point where it was, kind of dawning, and didn't know what I was gonna do. Me and my dad had a conversation, and my dad just said, like, "Look, buddy, you're gonna have a lot of better opportunities right now," and rightfully so. I was fortunate to, be ranked number one in the country at one point, and I had a lot of, offers, and not I had offers for football, but just not as elite, and uh, had that conversation, and man, I remember when I went back one night and had a real prayer with my Lord, and I threw fleece, and people that don't know what that is, that's is when in the morning to see if the rag was filled with dew, and so I threw fleece in my own way, and it was revealed through me, through my faith of what I should choose, and so I chose wrestling, and that's how it happened. So
Yeah, so I mean, we can get into your faith a little bit. Then I mean, obviously your parents um, instilled that in you guys growing up. Um,
yeah,
you said that your parents taught us, as in like you and your siblings, that anything is possible through Christ.
oh
Um,
yeah,
and your coach even said that you began to understand as a ninth grader what faith can do. Um,
yeah,
Life is truly hard, and it's just easier to go through that with Christ. And
yeah,
that was your response, you know,
yeah.
and that's special. I mean, especially how young you were.
hmm
There's a lot of things I'm sure you were going through mentally, obviously growing up, high school. None of that stuff's easy. It's all a part of the journey, and we get through it. But having Christ in your life and that point is huge.
Yeah, and and I think you know, what was unfortunate, the world gets heavy. At that point in my life, I was kind of on top of the world, and things were really good for me. But it got to the point where I needed to practice what I was preaching, and life hits you hard sometimes, and it's hard to look outside the mess and the cluster of things. It's hard to see the bigger picture and things, and so it's real easy just in life general to get clouded along your way, and to lose focus on what's true, and what I believe is that's my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. That's the truth, and I wish I would have probably I definitely wish I would have stuck to those words more. I would have really tried to practice what I preached, but where I'm at now, I wouldn't change it for anything. So.
Right. Hindsight 2020, right?
Right, exactly, yeah.
If you knew now what you did then, but it's all a part of the journey. It's all a part of the experiences that we have, and that's what it's all about, and
That's what it's all about.
that's kind
Yeah,
of, and I go back why I wanted to have you on the show. Like this is exactly why. I mean
yeah.
that's what it's all about, you know.
hmm
And so obviously you had a tough recruiting process, like you said. You were sought after as a wrestler, number one in the country, Fargo Triple Crown. Um, you want to talk a little bit about that process and kind of how
Yeah,
you made your decision on Oklahoma State?
yeah. So man, that process, I think they just changed the rules for that year. So they started being able to recruit you as a junior and call on you pretty early. And so, man, it was like it seemed forever, but you establish these relationships with these coaches. for so long, talking to him on a regular basis. And then, like, when you come time to actually make a decision, it's like breaking up with a girlfriend, man. Some can really take it well, some can take it not well, and that was a very interesting process. I think what helped me is I knew there was a salesman pitch to everything. I kind of
Yep.
put that in perspective, that there was a salesman pitch. And on my visits, I tried to, see through that as much as I could. But all in all, you can only do so much, as a young man. And, you fall victim to a lot of leading astray, things like that. And so I think for me in that process, I was weary, but I was overly excited as well too. I looked at it. I probably got a little ego filled during that time. I filled up my ego, and I probably got a little full of myself. So, to those big recruits out there, you're getting recruited. Don't let it get to your head. You stay strong. You stay humble. You stay steadfast. And what's good. And so I think that really helped me. And then and again, to answer your question, how I figured out I was going to go to Oklahoma State. I remember it came down to you and I in Oklahoma State, and I just had called Purdue, and I said I'm not coming. And so that was really hard because I really liked Tyrell Todd at the time and Tony Ursuline. I really thought they had something really good going there. And then obviously my brothers were at UNI, so that was such a hard decision for me. I remember crying about it. I remember being upset, not knowing what to do. Just being pulled each way. But I threw fleece, like in Leviticus again. I threw fleece. I saw if the rag was covered in dew in the morning, and what that means is I threw fleece in my own way. So for me, I'll tell you the testimony of the story. I prayed to the Lord. I said, someone has to come up and tell me the color of the school. So someone has to come up and just say the color to me in a conversation. That's what I put out. That was my fleece. So rather, someone's going to come up and say purple to me or orange to me. And man, that next day, my best friend runs up to me, grabs me, and goes, "You're looking real orange today, buddy," and slaps me on the back. And man, I just stopped in my tracks at school. I was like, well,
Wow.
I'm going to be a cowboy. So that's literally how that happened. Matt Rinkoff can attest to that. That's my best friend. So.
Dude, that's awesome. But like
He is
crazy at the same
alive.
time.
He is alive, and he will speak. He'll speak to you if you ask.
Man. Gosh, that blows me away.
Fires you
That's so
up.
awesome to
Fires
hear.
you up.
It definitely does. It definitely does. So I read a quote, it said, coming out of high school, I felt like I had to go big, storied program. I had family down there. I had a good connection with the coaches, but life changes and tide turns.
Did I say that? I said
So yeah, that's, I mean, in quotations.
that.
But
Yeah.
obviously you had a journey down there. I think what, 2 years, right?
2 years, yes. Learned a lot there.
Yep.
Yes.
Red shirt, and then a regular year. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to talk about, that experience, obviously, I mean, you can bring up funny stories, relationships
How
you've
long we
built.
got? I'm just kidding. Man, that experience, that was an interesting experience. Man, going through small town kid in Minnesota, just not knowing anyone, jumping into that culture. It was challenging for me. I learned a lot of good things about myself. Learned a lot of good things about people. I learned a lot of bad things about people. I learned a lot of things to watch out for. Um, on unfortunately, but fortunately, those 2 years were really big learning years for me, and grounding myself in who I was in Christ, and really having to, I guess, test what, I had been saying, like that quote, man, like, my words were tested, and my Lord did that for a reason. I think, wrestling for Oklahoma State, showed me the willingness to win. And it showed me, to be selfish for my career, showed me to be stingy, you know, um, and to wrestle with your chip on a shoulder ultimately. Um, but it also, taught me to, be careful who you trust. There's major consequences in who you trust,
Yep.
and you don't trust the right people. It can be truly detrimental. Um, you know, People that don't have your best interest. That can be very misleading to a young man. But ultimately, it was an experience that I had to have, that, again,
Exactly.
grounded me, you know what I mean? And I wouldn't have been able to do what the little I did, but I wouldn't have been able to do, what I did without those years. Those years really showed me a lot and elevated my game mentally, physically, all that stuff. Taught me how to train.
Before we continue today's episode, we would like to give a shout out to our second podcast episode sponsor, Iowa Ortho. Iowa Ortho delivers outstanding orthopedic care for local residents and beyond. Their expert teams handle sports injuries, arthritis, and more, all to improve your comfort and well being. With 9 convenient locations across central Iowa, setting up an appointment is a breeze. Visit their website at www.iowaortho.com or call 515 247 8400. And check out their state of the art body composition scan, which is perfect for athletes at an attractive price of $40. Choose Iowa Ortho for top notch care and convenience. Experience our exceptional service for yourself. Visit their website or call to schedule an appointment. Thank you again for your support, Iowa Ortho. Yeah, I saw this quote. It says, "At the end of the day, all you got in life is the journey and your experiences." That's what I go back to when I think about
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. It's like that's
Yes.
all you got at the day. It's who it built you to be now. So
Exactly.
I guess what I want to ask you is, there was a lot of things you said there about your experience there, but something that sticks out to me that's different than other people is being selfish about your career. And I think that can be looked at of one of two ways. It's like, oh, this guy's selfish, but then, it's also like it's a good thing too.
Yes. Yes.
So
And
if you just want to explain kind of what that means to you, or
yeah.
how you got it explained to you.
Yeah. you know, Being selfish for your career, like, you have to be. And, it's not, don't take this, anyone out there watching, don't take this wrong of us saying, being selfish for your career is, not walking with the ego around the room, and just being selfish. It's like, no, I can be selfish for my career and still be humble and down to earth and, a good team leader and a good teammate. But, I'm not messing around. You got one career, you got one shot. You're not gonna dilly dally with someone that's not gonna give their all. I got to go take what's mine. If I'm good buddies, right, with little Joey down the street, and we're competing for the spot, I'm not gonna. I'm gonna respect him, and but when I'm on the mat, like, I'm going after him like he's threatening my job. I'm going after him like he's trying to steal my dreams. Like that JB quote. I gotta, crush his dreams to fulfill mine, and it goes rightfully so with that. You have to be selfish for your career. You have to do what's necessary, and you can't look out, as another wrestler for anyone else's best interest but yourself. You know.
Yep. Yep.
So that's
And I mean that goes for anything in life. I'm not
yes.
I'm not saying being selfish is important, but being able to honor yourself, honor your wants, honor your needs is a
Mhm.
priority. And it should be. And that's
Yeah.
that's where that translates.
You put
There's
you
so
put an
many of those.
example. You put an example like this, like me and you when we were training. It's like we're training so hard. Doug had us wrestling hard. All those coaches had us wrestling hard. And it's like, if we wrestled a Penn State guy or, Oklahoma State guy, it's like, we're not backing down because of their name. It's like, I'm selfish in that regard too. It's like, we all train hard. And it's like, I train just as hard as anyone else. So by golly, I'm not going to back down to no one. And I think that's what, when guys don't, when they're not selfish, they respect their opponent on the mat and, start taking a back seat to things.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, so obviously your experience ended when you talked about, the trust, and being careful who you trust. Um, so how when you decided to make, leave there and move on, um, what was kind of the deciding factor, or what, pushed you or propelled you to make the decision to enter the portal and go, hey, there's something better for me somewhere else.
Right, right. I think so, you know, I wrestled in that season, I'm like, I go 18-10, I think. And, I go back and, it's just a culture standpoint. It's just uh, kind of a little, more party area. And so, you start just getting into, I had a lot of bad habits before then, but, getting into bad habits. And I remember there was just one point where, I didn't feel like I was getting the respect I should have had. And, looking around the room, and I knew they were, recruiting somebody that I had beat prior. And I was just kind of like looking at myself and wondering, what's it going to be like if I stay around here. And no good thing popped up in my mind. And so, from there forth, starting the process to, leave, and, looking for a new home. And, luckily, Doug Schwab opened his arms to me. But, you know, it was just a reflection of how the 2 years were going. And I didn't want them to keep going that way.
Yeah, so then obviously that propelled you to UNI, and what was that decision like? What was that um,
Yeah, yeah.
transition like?
Yeah. Um, well, we're being honest here, so, I recruited by, as soon as I entered the portal back to UNI, we're getting recruited by them, Purdue, and some other schools. And so I was really just looking at Purdue and UNI, the ones prior that, I was close to going to before. So, UNI had, my brother had just left there, so he was still really tied there. But then I had another brother there, Peyton, who was starting there. So, that really prompted me to go there, no, excuse me. But, Peyton, I was struggling in my life, and my older brothers, they're good, solid men. They live right, live clean. So I needed to get up there. I knew it would be really good for me. And when I say living clean, I mean just like have their life in check, like their room's clean, like everything, they're organized, they're men, so I needed that
Yep.
organization in my life. And so that's really what ultimately led me to the decision to, go to UNI. And then that transition, man, I mean, man, if I'm being honest, it wasn't a good one. It was tough. I had some bad, characteristics about myself. I was pretty egotistical. Redshirt freshman, NCAA qualifier, you're kind of, thinking, you have your own right. And I didn't, I guess I didn't realize necessarily what the team, I guess, camaraderie was. It was a good culture, but a
Yep.
completely different culture than what I was used to. And,
Right.
to be honest, I didn't have the warmest welcome from the team. I wasn't, me being from Oklahoma State and, just kind of knowing my background, I was pretty, arrogant at the time. And, I wasn't really accepted. It took me a long time to that first year to be accepted by the team. And, to really fit in, into that culture. I had to change my new normal is what I would always tell myself. So,
Change your new normal. Yeah, and I mean, obviously, shortly after you got there, you were already starting to deal with some injuries. You tore your elbow ligament in practice, so you missed that year,
Yeah,
or
that I mean
that season.
that and as transferring and tearing my elbow, having a 9 month injury, all of a sudden I'm not fighting in practice every day. I'm not blood, sweat, and tears. With the guys, I'm on the side. And I'm just kind of a body that's just kind of hanging around. I think that was played a really big part in the acceptance of the team for that first year
Yeah, I
anyway.
mean, you wanna talk a little. I've been there too, and
Yeah.
I kind of know what you're discussing, but you just want to talk about your perspective and how you took it. It sucks being
Oh
on the
yeah.
side. What'd you take from it? What'd you learn from it?
Yeah. Man, having injuries like that, like you realize how fortunate you are to be healthy. You, you hate it. It's agonizing. It drives you insane in a way. Um, and during that time for me, it's like I got pretty depressed. You're at one point, I'm on an all high and I'm wrestling for a really top program, and then transferring and then getting hurt, and then it's like I'm some nobody again, and some nobody, for first time in my life, and it's like, well, who am I? And I think during those processes you really find out who you are, because instead of tying my identity with wrestling, I realized I'm separate from wrestling. I'm a person outside of
Right.
wrestling. Wrestling's not who I am, it's something I do. And I think during that time I was going through the hard realization of that. And so it was tough, and it was struggling, but man, again, preparing my mind and preparing me for something greater than myself. So
Yeah, where did your faith come in that point? Was that something you were kind of struggling with? Was it something that you were holding strong, still relying on completely?
man, I had no faith at that time, no faith. you know um, Coming out of a type of culture, I had no, there's kind of no room for that. That seemed like a little softer side, and I didn't really want to tap into that. you know um and it's not, coming to realization now, it's not a soft part, but it's more of a masculine part, to be in touch with who you are, and
Yeah.
who you are in Christ. And it's like I didn't have that, and kind of for the that year and the year after that, my walk was non-existent.
Right. And so what would you say, you almost had to kind of change yourself a little bit to fit in?
Oh yeah, man, I had to completely change. I changed my whole life. And I say I changed my life, but I give credit to Doug Schwab changing my life, and finding a new normal for myself. Um,
Yeah.
and so realizing my mental thinking, not just like the way a thing is, but the way I see a thing. And he really
Your
showed
perspective.
me. Oh man, he gave me that. He gave me that, and uh, he really instilled some good core values in me that I needed at that time. So he really changed my life in that regard. Outside of wrestling.
Right. Yeah, and that's going back to the injury and the way you felt about it, figuring out your identity as a person, realizing that wrestling is something that you do, not who you are.
Yeah,
That's something that really hit home with me. That's something I really had to realize that I didn't realize necessarily at first.
yeah,
And you're a redshirt sophomore, right? You just transferred, and this is something that you're going through immediately. You're already struggling from the situation you were in, the culture you were in, the
yep,
decision you probably made, and
yep.
then it's like, now I'm here, I get hurt. It's easy to point the finger. It's easy to you
Easy
know
to do. Yeah.
lose sight of yourself. But
Had a lot of ego
you know
death at that time.
Right. And then we have people that we're fortunate for in our lives that can step in and help shape us, help mold us, help get us back on track. And that's, when you talk about Doug, that's just the kind of person he is. He's so in touch with himself. Like you said, that's a masculine thing. Now that you've realized that, but it's like being in touch with yourself. But he is so in touch with himself that he's able to um, push that onto his athletes, push that onto not even his athletes, but just people in general. Other
Yeah.
coaches, other
And
individuals that he's around.
yeah, and what's great about Doug Schwab? Doug Schwab ain't gonna ask his athletes to do anything he wouldn't do himself. And
Yeah,
that's what was huge. I think what I saw in regards, and it was like, man, like this guy's not asking me to run through a brick wall, like he's leading me through brick
through it.
walls. Yes, and so I think that was a very big standout point.
Yeah, I mean, then obviously, you're now eager. You're redshirt junior, um, ready to make your debut. Obviously, you had multitude of injuries again. You had a back injury. You tore a ligament in
Right.
your foot.
Yeah.
Um, you battled for a spot. There was again like another tough time. Things
Yeah.
just didn't get easier. They just kept coming and kept coming. And just talk about how you worked through that, how you again shaped your perspective.
Yeah. I think what was through all those, and it was like I couldn't catch kind of a break of things, and during that time, I wish I wouldn't have had a victim mentality. Even when things are out of your control, you can still look at it as an opportunity to overcome and to tap into a higher version of yourself.
Yep.
But that was really, I think, a big point is like I couldn't see myself as anything but a wrestler, right? So during these things where it's like I want to be, this good wrestler, but all these things are happening and I can't grasp that. I think what got me through is realizing the separation. Like those 2 years, that was realizing like the separation of like I'm not wrestling. Like I can't hold my whole identity in this. That's troublesome because it's like again, not being able to compete in something, you feel like you're nothing. You're on the sidelines, you feel like you have no purpose. And so when your heart feels like it has no purpose, I mean, we start, going haywire in a way. And I think, um, you know, I wish I would have tapped into my faith during that time, really tapped into my faith during that time, and I say it was non existent, but, I would go and I'd visit, but then I'd turn around and walk away, and I say
Yep.
visit, I would talk with the Lord and I'd turn around and walk away and not take any advice or anything I believed he was showing me. And I wish I would have, did that more, but, I think, you know, it was needed for what I needed to do. And, I had to find myself, truly try to find myself, I guess, just during that time and the way I felt. So,
Yeah. I mean, that's huge. I mean,
yeah.
finding yourself. You know. I mean, all those realizations that you had. You're missing a piece of your purpose. You really had to find that. And that's
Yes.
part of finding yourself. I think is finding your purpose, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
obviously, you know, again, things aren't working out. Things aren't going the way that you anticipated that you want them to, and you're given another opportunity. You're able to hop in the portal again and
Hmm.
make another change. And if you want to talk about again that transition, that experience, what led you
Hmm.
to kind of get there and the differences you made.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, after that season, wrestling 197 and, not doing anything. I'm not qualifying or anything. And, the battle I had, trying to win that spot, and we all know the
Yeah,
stories of
for
that.
sure.
So, I was thankful for that time. I it really that was the icing to the cake of really grounding myself in who I am. But man, after that tough season, kind of, veered off and lost, track of things, and found myself once again in some trouble. And had to, had to consider like, am I done wrestling? Is this it? And so, you know, entered the portal, just tossing my name in there, and luckily was getting recruited pretty heavily again, and had a lot of good options, and I was lucky that Nick Heflin reached out to me. I mean, our first phone conversation, we got a real strong connection, and I was really drawn to that. And so, man, again, just happened to realize like a lot of things at you and I were outside of my control, but a lot were in my control. And coming to that, uh, bearing, passing that season, bearing that, time in my life, and having to, relocate again is not easy for anybody,
Yep.
especially for, a kid trying to compete, um,
Right.
at the level we were at. And so, just trying to now at that point, just trying to not base my decision off money or anything else, but literally where I felt like my heart was telling me at the time, So that's ultimately that's how I made that decision.
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about just the differences in the lifestyle, the changes you made to your life. Obviously, you were an NCAA qualifier. Once again, at 184 pounds, you saw some success. You were able to get back on the mat and express yourself in that way that you struggled with for two years at UNI, and just
Mm-hmm.
kind of what did that feel like, and what did you get from it?
You know, you're talking about wrestling at OU.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, gosh, I mean that was a completely different experience from all the other programs, and I love it that I had such in these three programs I was a part of. Like there's such a different feel between all of them, and I think excuse me, I think coming to OU at that time was really good for me. I was older, my body was a little more worn down. And so those coaches were really, they believed in me. They knew the talent I had, and they were willing to work with me. They listened to me, and I knew what my body needed, and they they respected that, and so I getting in, I had blew out my MCL that summer, so getting in, I was having to rehabilitate and get everything up to speed. But I mean, they gave me free reign to be Keegan Moore, and I think that they coached me with so much positivity. In that first year I was there, and it was just absolutely, good and what I needed. Nick Heflin, was just always in my ear talking me up. And he really, poured into me. And so me as a, older athlete and, on the way out of his career, someone buying into me like that, I ramped it up. I knew how to train. I knew how to work hard. It was just like the little things, the finishing touches, and he helped brush those up, and, made round to 16 and had a good run, and then just last year was a year of learning, man. A year of learning. I trained harder than I ever have. I did everything that I thought I needed to put myself in the position to All American, but it didn't work out for me. And so I wasn't supposed to be, the champion of wrestling. And I believe the Lord's called me for something greater, to help be a champion for His kingdom, and think that's what he's preparing me for. And so like this whole last year, I trained harder than I ever have. I looked better than I ever have. Man, I had the physique. I was big, but um, that whole last year, I separated myself from God. I said that He doesn't care how I do this year. He doesn't. He has a lot of stuff bigger on his plate. To worry about me winning a wrestling match. And man, I couldn't have been
Right.
more wrong. I couldn't have been more wrong. And I think that's my testimony is like in my flesh, I had put myself in the best position. I had, my diet straight. I had, my physique straight. I was in shape. My wrestling was good, but I didn't get anywhere because I didn't include him. And I did the hamster on the wheel, going really fast, but not going nowhere, And so I learned so much in that last year. Almost I would debate equivalent to all the years I've been in college with that last year, So I wouldn't change that for anything, and
Yep.
ultimately that's why it's led me into ministry. And that's why, I'm big into that and looking to serve the church. So,
Before we wrap up this week's episode, let's extend our gratitude to our final sponsor, Mulligan's Brick Oven. Get ready for a delightful dining experience filled with incredible flavors and lasting memories. Mulligan's offers a warm and friendly ambiance that's loved by both locals and visitors. Their menu features creative dishes with a focus on brick oven pizza and progressive pub fare. Every dish is prepared with care for unrivaled quality and flavor. And don't miss their extensive beer menu, carefully curated to complement their cuisine. Mulligan's is open from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. Sundays through Wednesdays and until midnight Thursdays through Saturdays, giving you plenty of time to savor their culinary delights and a diverse range of beers. Explore a world of flavors at Mulligan's Brick Oven Grill and Pub. Thank you again to Mulligan's for the sponsor. I mean, what was your biggest takeaway from this last season? You said, you've learned more in that season than any others, and obviously talking about the last 5 seasons before that, it's you've had a lot of big takeaways, you've had a lot of lessons.
yeah, I think, man, one of the, few things that stand out to me, about last year, is like pursuing something at all costs. Like you wouldn't believe just I overtrained myself, I'd go in probably 3 times in a day, wouldn't really give my body rest. And I think I learned how far I could push myself, but I learned, what I was really weak at, I learned my mental aspect, from a completely different view, and so realizing that, it was like that last little grip of me believing like wrestling's everything, and
Yep.
coming through and realizing, there's more things to life than just wrestling, and I'll happily say that, but overcoming adversity and literally looking at the opportunity to grow when adversity hits. So, I and you asked what my biggest takeaway is that, and it's that, to look at a circumstance that might be detrimental in the course of my life, but instead of looking at it like I'm a victim or like I'm having to, go through this, oh, woe is me. I look at it as an opportunity to show the best version of myself and grow, you know. So I think
Yeah.
that's the biggest thing I took away.
I mean, that's huge, you know. And again, like, another reason why I wanted to get you on here. You got so many like gold mines you've been dropping. You've been dropping these little gold nuggets on me and our listeners, and I appreciate it. And
Yeah.
I guess my next question is just defining success and how you define that,
Mm.
and how it's changed over time,
Well, yeah.
through all these experiences.
Yeah. I used to define success as what you had in the bank, how many accolades you have, how many trophies you have, what have you done? That was a big thing in the beginning point of my college career, well, what have you done? And so became a point of proving people wrong and, wrestling out of, wrong reasons. Um, but you know, I think how it changed really is like looking at success. Like I'm like if I'm doing the right things, right? If I'm doing everything I know that is in accord to, for me, God's will. It's like that's what is success, and to go through adversity and how you handle things. But for me, like again, going from viewing success, everything, all the accolades and stuff like that, to literally looking at success as how my life is, how I'm waking up every day, how are my relationships, and like and then in wrestling, in the standpoint, you know, uh, I think a lot of Division I wrestlers, especially, they don't realize like how difficult it is to be on a Division I wrestling team. And so realizing success is, pursuing the goal, I think that's a big point of how I view success now. It's like I can look back from my last year and I'm like, well, I didn't get nowhere, but I was successful in my training for sure, and it's
Right.
like,
Yeah.
I guess finding the little success in everything, and not being so hard on
Right.
yourself in a way, not so cutthroat. Like if you're not first, you're last. That's a mentality in wrestling, and which it has its right to be, and that's good timing for that. But looking at success is just in a different aspect of who you are as a person and how your life's going around you, because you could have
Yep.
Billy Bob that's average, wins and loses just the same, but he is a team man. He is a hard worker. Everyone loves him around the team. I mean, and everyone wants to be around him. That guy's successful. That's a successful man. So
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like a thing that you're saying, but you're not, exactly saying, it's just it all comes down to choices. It all comes down to the choices that you make.
hmm
Bettering yourself, and that's
yes,
that's really what success is, right? You're making the best choices for you to be the best version of yourself,
yes,
right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
that's huge. I
You're
love hearing that.
making choices to put yourself in the best position to be successful. It's
Right.
literally
And then you're dealing with, all the other things along the way, the struggles,
exactly.
the adversities, you
Yeah.
learn from all those things that happen. Those are your learning points. They aren't failures.
Yes. Yes.
So, I mean, now that man, that was great. I just want to kind of wrap up with, your future endeavors, your
Yeah.
future goals, and
Yeah.
just what you kind of got going on in your life right now.
Yeah, for sure. Been helping out, still with the University of Oklahoma wrestling program, going wrestling with those guys every so often. Kish and Cameron Sikora, they got in Marsden, that program's really, it's looking good and the future's bright. But right now I got to finish my. I'm literally right here with my master's degree, about to get that. Be applying for jobs at the end of the month, but been ranch handing on the side on the weekends and been working my butt off doing that and enjoying that. But ultimately, what I'm looking forward to the future is being heavily involved in ministry. I look forward to hopefully one day holding my own church and my own services and becoming a pastor. So,
That's awesome, man.
yeah.
I love hearing that.
What about
I'm
you?
proud of you, man. I'm proud of you. I really
You
am.
get,
No,
yeah,
like,
I appreciate
I
it, dude.
think that's where I kind of, I got a soft spot in my heart for Keegan Moore, and
Yeah, yeah,
I've seen him go through things, and I've been there. I've tried to be there, and
yes,
I've tried to
yes,
know how to let you know how much I appreciate you, and
yes,
how much I've looked up to you and your journey, and the way you've gone about things. Even if it's not the best way in the moment. It's your takeaway and how you've developed. And
Yeah, man.
we were warm up partners. I miss that.
Yeah. And man, I want to appreciate you, dude. You were absolutely, a good, positive person in my life and a light in my life, and best darn warm up partner. We had a real good warm up.
Oh
Sorry
yeah.
for Tate Piccolo seeing this if he does. But yeah, I mean, it says a lot about you as a person. The way you treated me, the way our relationship developed, and I wouldn't trade it for nothing. So I appreciate you, man. Appreciate all the compliments you gave me tonight. Make me feel
Oh, of course. Of course. You deserve them, man. I guess I got two more things really. What is one piece of advice you would give to young wrestlers?
To young wrestlers. Oh man, I think follow your heart in the sport. It's very cliche to say, but really making sure things are light and that you're enjoying and having enjoyment and that you're literally having fun while you're doing this. And to just make sure everything's in check, because like we learned from Doug Schwab, everything bleeds together. And if you want to be great, you gotta be willing to train hard. So
All right.
that's it.
All right. That's awesome, man. I
Big in
usually
your
just
faith.
finish with
Big in your faith.
I usually finish with like some rapid fire questions. So let's get into it. What's your
Okay.
favorite place to eat in Oklahoma?
Oh, favorite place to eat in Oklahoma? Charleston's.
All right.
Charleston
What's your
Steakhouse.
favorite sports team?
Favorite sports team? Man, I really don't watch TV, but favorite sports team, Philadelphia Eagles.
What's your favorite movie?
Favorite movie, Troy. Troy. We'll go Troy.
Who's your favorite athlete?
My favorite athlete, Alex Pereira.
All right, there you go. What's your favorite home cooked meal?
Chicken fried steak by my mom.
And there you go. That's good. Well, thank you for listening to the Elite Wrestling Club podcast. We hope you found today's episode valuable and enjoyed our exploration of Keegan Moore. To stay connected with us, hit the subscribe button to never miss an episode. We release new content every Monday. Leave a review on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. Your reviews help us reach more listeners and provide valuable content. Visit the Elite Wrestling Club website and follow us on social media for questions, topic suggestions, or to connect with our community. If you love the episode, donate to us using our Elite Wrestling Club PayPal or Venmo, which is located on our website. So you can go to elitewrestlingclub.store, click podcast, and then hit the podcast website button in yellow, where you will see the donation heart in the top right corner. These donations help us to continue providing remarkable content for you weekly, as well as improve your experience for future episodes as well. Exciting episodes are coming, so stay tuned and join us next time for more inspiration. Thank you for being a part of the Elite Wrestling Club podcast world. Keep exploring within to inspire others.